we basically need to start the GoFundMe or the Patreon or
Hmm.
whatever, because there's no
Hmm.
way our
Hmm.
listeners, we've probably lost all of them because we're starting 47 minutes after I said we would
I
start.
know.
So there's like, yeah, they're like, oh, these guys are not going to podcast today.
They're
No,
on with their day. They're like moving on. You know, it's
which
it's
is
like that.
fine.
Yeah, it's like that moment, you I had this happen 3 times yesterday where I went into y- you've probably done this too. I'm sure a lot of, educators do this. Leaving your classroom to run around for a moment. Where are you going? I got to run around. I got to run around the school a little bit. That moment is like you're loading up like a Sherpa, right? You're taking you got your mobile phone, you got your journal to take notes. Maybe you got your coffee cup or your big Stanley water cup, your laptop, your stack of papers that you're gonna, that you might want to photocopy for later, or those last few things that you're marking. You got your photocopy card so you can do your tap, and all these kind of your keys. Oh, make sure you bring your room keys, because guaranteed if you forget your room keys, you won't remember that you've forgotten your room keys. You'll close the door, you'll walk out, you'll say to yourself, damn, I left my phone on my desk. You'll go back, and then you're like, second damn, where are my keys? And you're like, they're in the classroom. So I had these sort of Sherpa runaround moments yesterday. And part of it was also, the list on my phone, the checklist of things to do. And one of them was like, check in with this administrator, check in with this teacher, check in with this guidance counselor. So you're mapping it out. I'm kind of doing the GPS of the school. What's the most efficient way to move around the school? And you kind of do these casual kind of drop ins like, hey, can I ask you a question? Yesterday, struck out every single time. And even where someone was like, give me a minute, and they're finished on the phone, and you kind of stand there and you're like administrative assistant, hey, how's it going, nice to see you, hey, did you get a haircut? And then you're like, okay, they're not getting off the phone. You're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna come see you later on. Like, you're kind of doing this other setup stuff, you're staging these other things, and I never get to meet the person. So that's why I feel like our podcast people were like, they showed up geared up like the Saturday morning Sherpas, right? They got their radio breakfast, cookies making, kids fed, or just enjoying the quietness of the morning. And the feed doesn't start. And they're like, well, moving on with my day. They might
And
circle back. They might circle back. I tried to circle back to one of the people, but the rest of my day, it wasn't the same river. Couldn't step my foot back into the same spot. So the day went on.
so it's funny that well, I appreciate everything you said, and I totally agree. And the Sherpa thing is so bang on. You should see me, man, before I leave my little desk space.
Yeah.
I don't even carry my cell phone anymore because I'm trying
Oh,
to be a
really?
good model for the kids.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't have my cell phone with me, and I'm like, I should really, because I want to take photos. I'll see something cool. I'm like, I got to take a
Yeah.
picture. My cell phone's back in my school bag, but yeah, I Sherpa up, man. Like I'm walking with like everywhere I go, I got stuff under both arms, and like you should see me. I go into the OSR room, clump,
Yeah.
clump,
Boom.
and then
Boom.
get OSRs, put them on, and then Sherpa them back up and go to the
Yeah.
next place.
Yeah.
Um, we've have got a couple of people who came back around. So
All right.
bonjour, Rochelle.
Bonjour,
Good to
Michelle.
see you.
Bonjour. Yep.
And Gary's dropping a GM. So
GM Gary.
guys, we were talking. Sorry, Gary and Rochelle. Right when we kick-started the podcast, I was talking about it would be cool when I say that we're going to start at 8 a.m. It would be cool if people like you two who are here often and participate, if you could have a door in to to just hang with us for the on ramp, because you're there, you're ready, you're interested in whatever, participating, talking to us, listening to us, and we just don't show up on time. That would be cool if people could just walk in the door. They're like, "Yo, I'm just sitting here. You guys keep talking," because then they could see what's going on. They can see kind of what
Mhm.
informs. Like, look, today we had a great on ramp, and I'm not going to say any of what we talked about out loud because it's just
It is.
there's too much risk involved, and there's too much
Broad
that
strokes. broad strokes, because at least, the topic of our conversation, which has been quite enlightening to me, is the difference structural, infrastructural differences between spec ed in your board and spec ed in my board. We're now at the same level of panel. We're both in high school, right? But just the pieces, the way the pieces are configured, is fascinating to me. It's fascinating. So that's kind of the heart of it, right? And both of us, yeah, I think, ardently supporting the why behind we have these programming, like why it is these things are in place in each of our boards according to our experience.
My
So
okay, yeah, broad strokes. I like what you said. For me, what's been funny recently in the past couple of days is I'll talk to you about a situation I'm working through, and then you respond with how it works in your board. And it sounds like there's a lot of checks in place, checks and balances. And then my response to you is, I'm the check and balance. And you're like, oh,
yeah,
I'm the check and balance. When this
yeah,
paper appears in front of me, this is what I was told to do with it. There is nobody overseeing me. There's nobody overseeing me. There are certain things, but the certain things that I need to talk to somebody above me about is just so crazy that I'm like, I need to talk to somebody because I've never seen this before. I have no idea what to do with this.
you have a level of agency that I do not. Like, as far as and responsibility that I do not.
But I feel like I hear what you're saying and I agree, but I also feel like when the hammer hits me, it's going to hurt a lot more than if the hammer hit you.
That's absolutely
Like,
true. So there's the independent, some of the decisions that you can make with documentation and sort of communication and kind of with how you manage your day. I can't operate that way because there's very specific rules of engagement that I have to follow. And there's people that actually make some of those decisions before it even gets to my desktop. I can talk to them. I don't even have influence though. Like I wouldn't even they tell me how it has to be and I sort of move forward. So do I still have agency sometimes in the method that could be delivered? Sure. But as a primary decision, I don't have access to a lot of that. I have sometimes influence. Sometimes I bear witness to other people's decisions. I'm like, okay, here we go. Um
this
and
is,
look,
oh, go
do
ahead.
it. No, no, do it.
No,
Do it, do
no,
it.
I'm not going to do it.
This is season 8. Episode 3, number 309 of the Dakota podcast. That's where I thought you're gonna go. Sorry to steal it from you. I never say it though. I think I probably have that maybe on 5 of our episodes.
That's what I was going to do. And you didn't steal it from me. It's
Okay.
our podcast. So
There we go. It's your
I'm
thing.
glad you picked it up and did it because I wanted to get it done. It only took 8 minutes today for you to say that or for us to
It,
say that.
it's like the attendance. Sometimes we just don't
Oh,
get to it.
which I'm going to share my on-call story because
I love
Gary
it.
will appreciate this and so will Rochelle. But Gary says even sometimes there's differences from school to school.
Hmm.
And he's so right because a few times this week when I was in student success doing my thing, I was like, I wonder if this is how it operates at Gary's school because I know Gary is the head of school improvement at his school. And I think it's safe to say that Gary runs student success in his building. And it would just be cool to see. I've watched my school improvement student success program head. I watch her do her thing. And then I think, how does Gary do this? What would Gary say if I asked him about this? Because Gary is one of my lifelines right now for my e-learning, for student success, for, and I can say this out loud, talking about the politics that surround me in a safe way, right? I can say, Gary, this is what I'm experiencing right now here. I need to know, do I step to the left or do I step to the right?
Hmm.
And so far Gary's been great at providing me with wisdom and knowledge from his perspective on, maybe which way to step and which landmine might hurt less, if we want to put it that way. Um, So I appreciate that, Gary. But yeah, like I'll be sitting there thinking, I wonder how this is done at Gary's school. Um, yeah, I don't think I know any other student success heads. I did know one, but he moved out of the position. But anyway, it's just interesting because for sure it operates differently depending on the person who's running the department and the culture of the school. Like a kid walked in, we're in our student success room is 208 and it used to be 210. So a kid walked in, grade 12 kid walked in. He's like, "Holy cow, this is the new student success." And I'm like, "Hey, I'm new. Give me some context." He's like, "My name is so and so." I was like, "You're on my caseload." He's like, "Oh, that's awesome. How'd you know that?" I'm like, "I know the names." He's like, "Okay." He goes, "This is awesome in here the way you have it set up. Last year we were in this room and it was too small and there weren't enough computers." And I'm like, "Well, somebody figured that out just like you, kid, because they moved it over to the big room and there's a lot more going on in here." So even in the
Mhm.
last year, there's been a lot of change in my building around that. But the other day, I got to school and oh, I want to say Rochelle agrees. So I'm with Rochelle, all my time spent in elementary and even in re-engagement, going from school to school, very different how people are operating
Yep.
to the point where my principal of re-engagement told me, she asked me to create a form, like a survey to send to the administrators of the building I was working in to find out, to get a snapshot of their culture quickly. So like when I come to your school, do you want me to check in with you at the office or do you just want me to come in and get to work? Can I sit where I want in the building, or is there a particular place where you want me located? Like, because in my conversations with my principal, she would say something. I'm like, "Oh, that's not going to work at Saint such and such." She's like, "Why not?" I'm like, "The administrator there has a different perspective of how this is going to be," and there was too much of that. She's like, "How can you maintain? How do you keep track?" I'm like, "I just know where to go and what to do because that's the algorithm, right?" So she's like, "No, no, I want to know." My principal was great. She was always looking out kind of for my wellness. So she's like, "No, I want to know. I want to know what they want you to do when you get there. Are you okay with that?" I'm like, "Yeah, please create a survey, send it to them. If they fill it out, I'll look at the results." And some principals were very clear. When I arrive, I am to wait in the office to meet with them first before I do anything, which is hilarious because, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but I'd get there and I'd walk in and I'd sign in and I'd say to the admin assistant, "Is the principal available?" And they'd be like, "No, they're on the phone." I'm like, "Okay." And I would just sit there. And then they're like, "Do you want me to call your student?" "No, please don't do that." "What do you
Mhm.
mean?" "I'd like to speak to the principal first." Then they're
Mhm.
looking at me like I'm crazy when I want to say, "No, this is what your boss has told me they want to happen."
Mhm.
"Are you sure you don't want me to call the kid? I mean, she's busy." No, I've been instructed to speak to your principal first. Now they're looking at me like I'm nuts. I'm like, I'm not nuts. I'm just following the protocol that I've been
Yep.
asked to follow. But you're wasting time. And then if I got to know the admin assistant, I just laugh and say, I got you. And I appreciate you looking out for me. I can't go anywhere until I meet with the boss first. And then there were other places where it's like I'd sign in, nobody gave a rat's ass I was there because it was so busy. I'd sign in and just go to where I needed to go and do what I needed to do, sign out and leave, and it's stealth. Nobody even knew I was there. They're like, "Roland, you're here today?" I'm like, "Yeah, don't worry. I signed in and I will sign out." So my principal was like, "No, we need to know what's going on." So Rochelle, to your point, every elementary school has their way of operating, their own
Mhm.
culture. Some are friendlier than others.
I like that there's what I find, radical, is how different, student services are delivered at elementary versus secondary. And I get developmentally, we're doing different things at different level. I get that. We're using similar structures though. I find school to school, like even the student success kind of portfolio in our board, it's more similar across high schools than it is high school to elementary. Like there's two or three models off the top of my head that I could say, and I'd be covering about 80 or 90% of the high schools in York Region District School Board as far as the menu that they're using to deliver student success. And I will say in my board, there's a very clear delineation between student success and student services. So all the spec ed stuff is a separate entity altogether. For us, there's separate funding, separate sort of tools. And we're actually, from my experience, quite hesitant to blend those two because we talk about something called the double dip. So making sure that it's kind of like the line we draw to say if the kid is being supported by student success, then we're reticent. Sorry, let's do it another way. The legislated side, where a kid is supported through spec ed, we're hesitant to sort of, okay, also, you're also going to be spending time in the student success room. Like we try and keep those a partition there. And that's just been my experience. I don't have a justification as to why. That's just been my experience so far. It's often, though, when I do look at, because I teach a program that has grade 9s coming into it, and then I keep them for grade 9, 10, and 11, I do sometimes get this sense of Wild Westness in the way that the special education structures are used in elementary. And obviously, this becomes a pattern of these patterns then become bigger conversations at secondary when I find myself saying, well, I get it. They said that this could happen at high school, but it can't. Like we can't actually do that. We can't provide that programming. And sometimes we can't provide that programming because it's not at the school. Sometimes we can't provide that programming because it's actually not what secondary programming is. Now, the great thing is that even as I say that, I've had to relearn what secondary programming is and can be. But there are some, and this was part of our on-ramp, some things that would be non-negotiable because there isn't the funding models. Like we just don't have those resources at secondary. So I kind of love the wild card, Wild West moment when I'm looking at, through an OSR that has just come up from grade 8. I'm like, wow, they do this. Whoa, they do this. And I like how it's broadening my story and actually increasing the playing field for me. Because the more that I know about how, elementary schools kind of operate, and I get to see how these IEPs are designed as a primary kind of, like if we're saying the IEP is a portal or a window into a school's culture, I'm starting to get to that now. I know I have a sense of, I'll do it a different way. If you were to show me an IEP coming from one of the partner schools, I would be able to, every once in a while go, that's from St. Jimmy's. That IEP is from St. Jimmy's. And I don't even have to look at the kid. Don't have to look at the kid. Don't have to look at the teacher. Don't have to do a name. I can tell by the way the accommodations are set up, some of the structures, some of the other tools that were used. I'm like, that's a St. Jimmy's one. And I'm kind of liking having this perspective. It makes things, complicated because then decisions aren't so easy anymore, which I guess that's good, right? But we also have to deliver a first draft of a document. Us is October 16th. I don't know what yours is, but I'm sure yours is, the first 30 days it has to be into the hand of the parents, which is just like a checkpoint because it's a living document and it's not closed. So you got to have that first draft ready to go. Hopefully, at least your accommodations are solid for a leap off. Hopefully, your program pages, if you have to do those, are clear enough that if someone's looking, they know what you're teaching the kid in your classroom. But I love the Wild West nature because every year I'll get in the OSR and I'll look at the IEP. I'm like, oh, they have a new cert at that school. This is different. This IEP, this is different. Whoa. Like, and you can actually it's like getting a different chef in the kitchen making the same dish. And you're like, did you use nutmeg in this? Yes, just a pinch. I'm glad you noticed it. Yeah, there's some nutmeg in your IEP. The nutmeg in the IEP. There we go. I think I just discovered the title for today.
That's a good one. Not
Yeah.
Meg in the IEP.
Well, you'll get there too, right? Like as you start to, like you were on the inside where you were reading them. See, because part of it is you won't notice it if you're actually inside the school. So you've been inside schools, you've done the elementary programming, but you've also been influenced by the culture of IEP design from that school. And whether you want to or not, you're not an independent agent. You are following rules there to a degree, and that creates like a pseudo template. So there was somebody at a high school that was like, this is coming from St. John's. I know this is coming from St. John's. And you're going to get that now too. You're going to start to look at it, you're like, oh man, this style again. And right away, it's going to go, doot, doot. It's going to open up a side dialogue box. And you're like, okay, I got to do this now. Brrr, check all those things off. Okay, back into it. Let's look. It's going to create these really dynamic kind of deliverable checklist for you as soon as you receive that OSR, or you have a kid coming from you and you're already getting out, you're packing your Sherpa pack because you're going to have certain meetings to kind of clarify, because there's only like 3 accommodations on a page with a kid that's so complex it should be a 3-inch thick OSR. Like, you start to get these kind of moments.
So I have a moment I had, a really cool moment. I was invited to a meeting. My vice principal invited me to a meeting. A new student was registering, and they have an IEP, and it falls under my caseload. So I was invited to this meeting. So I get to the meeting, and Gary's saying that that's his experience as well, Chris. Um, I get to the meeting, and as the meeting's starting, um, I'm taking notes, and I'm literally a few times I must have been smiling, and people must have thought I was crazy, wondering because maybe my smile wasn't fitting within the context of the conversation. But what I was smiling about was because by this day I'd already met with all my grade 9s and my grade 10s. So we're looking at, I don't know, 70 kids, and I'm asking them certain questions to gather data to help me write my IEP. And in this meeting, I'm not asking any of the questions. I'm an observer, and I'm listening. And I'm like, I need that. And so I'd write that down, because I'm like, the whole time I'm thinking, hey, if I play my cards right at the end of this meeting, I can actually write this kid's IEP and have a good chunk of it done before the OSR gets here, because regardless of what the OSR says, I'm going to interview this student. I'm going to consult with this student, and I'm going to ask questions to gather this information. And here it is happening in front of me in this meeting. Like, check, 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 as I'm going through my checklist of what I need to know about this student in order to build according to how I've been trained to write an IEP. And, ultimately, it's like no IEP is complete for a new student until you've reviewed that OSR. And I'm like, I get that. 2 thumbs up, I get that. But until I get that OSR, I'm working on that IEP with what I know. And these people gave me a ton of stuff that gets used to build the student's IEP. So that was awesome. And I was already starting to get a vibe for, okay, this is good. They're saying some stuff that I need to know about, I need to consider. So yeah, and you're right. It's not there yet, but I can tell you that based on the transition meeting notes from the grade 8s coming to 9, I already I I already have a vibe for which elementary schools operate in a way that serves me well as an IEP monitor, and which schools, if you say their name, I'm going to shake my head like, oh, it's that school and the way they operate has proven to not be beneficial to my process in how I was trained. And we're talking, what, we just finished the 3rd week of school. I feel like I've been there. Like, I dream about IEPs now. When I close my eyes, I see the matrix of the IEP writer in my mind, because I've spent so much time. Yesterday, I so period 1 and period 5, I'm supposed to be in the student success room. Period 1, I walk in and the program head is like, "Get out of here." I'm like, "What?" She goes, "Get out. Go work on your IEPs. I don't want to see you until they're done." Okay. So I leave. I came in period 5, and the head wasn't in there, but the other SST person was. She's like, "What are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here." I said, "Listen, I cannot look at another IEP for the rest of this day. I need to talk to students. I need to be in this room. I need to be challenged with the kid who's writing their grade 12 math quiz. And I need to talk to the kid who's taking auto, who hasn't finished their safety package. Like I said to her, hey, I really love that all of you are supporting us in writing our IEPs, and I need more time, but please, I can't look at the IEP writer again. I'm done. I've been looking at it all day. I've been writing all day. I just want to work with some kids. And she's like, okay, you don't, I don't tell you what to do. I'm not your whatever. I'm like, just know I'm not messing, like I'm not wasting time. I just want to work with kids, talk to kids. Like I can't do it. So if you send me away, I'm just going to sit in front of the screen. Like I'm done. I'm maxed out. I can't write any more IEPs today. She's like, okay. I took full advantage of the time. I was working with the kids that were in there. And then I discovered that there are some kids in my e-learning class who are actually in the building. So I called them to student success because I'm like, yo, you haven't done everything you're supposed to do. What's going on? And they're like, who are you? I'm like, I'm your friggin' e-learn teacher and I work here. So you and I are going to be spending a lot of quality time together. And then you get the, I don't really know how this works. I'm like, okay. So I crack open my Chromebook. I show them things. So it was good. But all I see, like I'm staring at the screen and all I see is the IEP writer. I don't see anything else.
Mhm.
I don't see anything else right now. That's my matrix.
It's what I mean, and I'm on the other end where, like, I have 13 kids, and um, what I don't have in breadth, I have in depth. So going through each of their program pages and the everyday, like the my comms log right now is not only, shoulder deep for me as far as connecting with all the parents. Um, it's also multimodal. Like I text all the parents. We have a platform that's called Talking Points, which is great. And I've managed to cajole, armbar a little bit. Like, come on, parents, let's use this because we need to move information quickly sometimes. So and all the parents are on, and I have threads started with each of them. They're all using it in some way. So I have that. I have email, I have my phone log, I have my YouTube channel where I send home a digital newsletter. I have it up on my YouTube channel, but I haven't sort of like forwarded the link yet to the parents. I got to do that this morning. So, and I have comments coming back on that. So that's just, there's so much stuff that I'm threading through right now in order to get to the IPs. And I told you in the on-ramp, I'm nowhere near started. I have everything is piecemeal. So like the next 2 weeks is crushed. It's go time for me. So what you've spread over 3 weeks with multiple instances of having to get things done because of the number of IPs you have to deliver, I'm now going to have to be dropping into. So you got it done at the front end, and you were very clear in conversation. You had to get this done and get it off your docket, right? I'm on the other end where I've been constantly working with kids, constantly immersed in it because I'm also teaching them as well. And only now do I feel like I have a rich enough data set that I can clearly now sit down and go bug-eyed over my IMP planner. So, and this is typically how I work every year. I say to myself in August, I'm like, okay, let's get to these faster. And then I realize it's not as interesting to write them if I kind of do it without hanging with the kids for a couple of weeks. So I got to go back through my notes, all the little moments, plus their experiences that they've had in their first couple of weeks of class. I roll that in as well and start adjusting their accommodations because of the new course loads that they have. So I have the real-time data to put in as well about performance baselines in their integration class right now. So away from me when they're doing their single credit bearing course. So it's just kind of fascinating. We're kind of flipped in our timelines. You'll go hard on the front end, get it done. Now you're going to slowly start to get to the kids and ultimately probably adjust IEPs accordingly. And then I do all the meetings on the front end, hang with, work with, communicate with the parents, then write. And then once we get into October, then it's just the management of the IEPs and the relationships. We can kind of get to the more human side. Well, the more face-to-face human side. I consider for me a very human and creative endeavor to design a good IEP that clearly articulates the needs, the strengths, but also communicates to the teacher in an effective way what their next steps need to be. And sometimes that takes some real shaping. The drop downs are useful, but I'm kind of like I'm a little bit deeper than the drop downs because sometimes I like to take the drop down, I'll customize a little bit, and then I'll also say, okay, and here's an example of what it could look like in math class. I like to give a provided from the kids' context. So I'll be dropping into that state of mind sometime today.
Yeah, as I learn as I learn more about this process, I'm trying to build in my mind what it would look like if I had to do it again. Um,
Hmm.
what happens? What are the things I can do during the first week of school?
Yep.
And then when do I start? When do I need to start meeting with kids? And that's all I can do. But it never works that way because it's like I told you there's what my job is on paper, but then there's what my job looks like in real life.
Hmm.
And the two are not, they're different. Um, they're different, but I'm going as hard as I can with the paperwork now so that the things I'm doing aside from the paperwork, the important stuff like meeting the kids and hearing about what's going on with them, what's working, what's not working, what they need to build relationship. Like yesterday I had a great experience. So I was walking up the hall sometime this week and this kid says to me, "Yo, Mr. Chidiak." I'm like, "Hey, how's it going?" "Good, good." He goes, "You're my IEP monitor." I said, "I am?" He goes, "Yeah, my mom got an email from you." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool, cool." He goes, "When are we gonna meet?" I'm like, "Oh man, I don't know. Um, what grade are you in?" He's like 11. I'm like, "Okay, cool. Um, we'll chat for sure." He's like, "Okay." I'm like, "You got to get to class." So he goes to class. Yesterday, he appears in student success, and I'm like, "Hey, you're the kid that said hi to me in the hall." He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Remind me of your name." He tells me his name. He goes, "You're my IEP monitor." I'm like, "Well, let me bring up your IEP and I'll," because I had a funny feeling. I'm like, I don't think I'm his IEP monitor. Um, I think it's somebody else for a variety of reasons. But anyway, because his last name fits with my alpha, but his learning profile doesn't fit with what I'm responsible for. So I bring up his IEP, and right away I see that it's not me. So I'm like, okay, I need to tell him this, but I need to be gingerly and gentle because this kid is excited
He
for
was
me to
hopeful.
be, yeah, for me to be his IP monitor. So I'm like, yo, I'm gonna call him Jimmy. His name's not Jimmy, but I'm like, yo, Jimmy. He comes over. I'm like, dude, I'm not your IEP monitor, but that doesn't mean we can still talk about your learning and stuff, especially if you're in student success. I'm here 2 periods a day, so I'm here to support kids. So we can work that way. We can work together. And then it's funny because the student success teacher was in the room. She's like, "No, you can't. You two can't work together if he's not on your alpha." She was joking, but it was funny because Jamie was looking at her like, "What?" And I was even looking at her like, "What?" Because right now I'm so like rule oriented. I'm like, "Oh, she's just joking, Jimmy. We can work together." So then I start to learn about Jimmy, and I'm like, "Why are you in here right now? Your name's not on the list for you to be in here right now." And he's all looking at me like, "Oh, you're going all official on me." I'm like, "Hey, where are you supposed to be?" And I know where he's supposed to be. He's supposed to be down the hall in one of the special education classes that we have. And he's like, "I'm supposed to be in that room, but I'm not going there." And I'm like, "Ah, Jimmy,
I love
why?"
that flex. I love that flex,
Yeah,
that moment. Yeah.
Jimmy, why? I don't belong in there. I'm not. I'm not the same kind of student as the kids in there. And I'm like, "Oh, Jimmy, we're talking about kids in there and kids over here." I'm like, you're all kids. Does your teacher know you're in here?" He's like, "Yeah, she said I could come in here." I was like, "Okay, cool." So I added his name to the digital list and made a note that I was working with him. And then at the end of the day, the bell rang, and I learned a lot about him. Like it was a great relationship building exercise. Learned a lot about him, and I see why he's in that class. But his teacher comes in right when the bell rings, and she says to me, "Okay, so here's the deal. Jimmy is going to only be in here the last 15 minutes of this period starting Monday." And Jimmy's like, "No, no, I want to be in here longer." She's like, "No, Jimmy, you have a class. It's in room such and such. That's where you need to be for period 5. And if you do what you're supposed to do, then you can come in here and work with Mr. C for the last 15 minutes of the day."
Mhm.
And he's an agreeable kid. So he's like, "Okay, okay, we'll give it a try." And I'm like, "Okay, Jimmy, get out of here. The bell rang. It's Friday. You got better things to do than hang out with two middle-aged teachers." So he leaves, and I say to her, "Oh my God, this kid broke my heart. Like he doesn't want to be in your room." She's like, "Yeah, I know that, and I know why. It's because half the kids in the room don't function at the same level as him in a social way, but
Mm.
academically, he needs what I'm giving." And I'm like, "I'm not arguing with you. I'm just telling you, you know, I said, listen, is it possible maybe he could start the first 5 minutes in here, period 5, because he doesn't want other people to see him go in there. I said to her, you're the teacher, but maybe we'll get more buy-in if he can walk in here, wait a few minutes, then when the
Mhm.
hall's clear, he can go into your room. You do your attendance. You do your attendance like 10 minutes in anyway, and then let him do his thing and then get him out of there before the end of the day when everybody will see him coming out of there."
Mhm.
And she's like, "That's not a bad idea." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, I'm supposed to be in here period 5, so let me know how you want to play it. I'm happy to support him.
Yep.
I want him to be where he's supposed to be, but if we can kind of help him save a little bit of social face, I'm
Oh
okay with
god,
it."
yeah.
Yeah. But I ultimately she's the teacher, she's running that show. It's not my lane. But
Mhm.
but I did my part. I was like, poor kids, friggin' socially, this is social suicide in a way for him at the moment. Can we help avoid that? I kind of see that's the other thing too. Gary and Rochelle appreciate this. So will you. I started flexing my style this week. I was like, yeah, it's time for action. I'm still learning. I'm learning where my lane is, but it's time to flex. So like, you know how many
Mhm.
people walk into student success and they're like, "Who are you?" So I went to a computer, I printed a picture of me, put it on the board and wrote my name on top of it. And everybody in student success is like, "That's friggin' awesome. When did you do that?" I'm like, "The other day when like the 30th kid walked in and said, 'Who are you?' Now I just point to the board. I'm like, I'm Chidiac. There's my image, there's my name. Put the two together. You can be seeing me in here a lot. Who are
Mhm.
you?" Then they're like, "So and so." I'm like, "Right on, so and so." And then they go to sit down. I'm like, "No, you're not sitting down until I check the computer and make sure you're supposed to be in here." So that's my style. I'm flexing my style. I'm like, if I'm in this room and I'm responsible for the kids in this room, I'm the teacher. So there's some non-negotiables if I'm running the show. That's
Yep.
just the way it's going to be, right? And
Mhm.
one kid yesterday, he comes in, he doesn't want to be in there. His auto teacher calls me and he's like, "This kid's done none of his safety stuff, and I can't let him touch a machine
Yep.
until he's done the safety." So the kid sits down or whatever, he pulls out his cell phone. So I'm like, "Are you choosing to do your research using your cell phone? Or are you going to use a desktop?" Goes, "Oh, I'm going to use my phone for now." I'm like, "Yeah, okay. Okay, sounds good, kid." Time passes, time passes. He started asking me for questions. So I sit down with him and I'm like, "Okay, like you've basically tapped the beast on the shoulder. I'm now in your space and now we're going to work together, which means there's going to be some, again, I'm involved. I take action." I'm
Yep.
like, "You got to put that phone away." And he looks at me like, "What?" I'm like, "I'm here now. I'm ready to assist. I don't want to see the phone again." He's like, "Oh." Puts the phone away. I'm like, "Turn on the desktop computer and log in. It's going to be easier to do for both of us if there's a desktop. So we're working or whatever. Can I go to the bathroom?" "Yeah, make sure you sign out. Make sure you sign in." He does that. He comes back, goes to sit down, pulls his phone out. I said, "You don't need that." Goes, "Oh, no?" I said, "No, you don't need that." I'm like, "Hey, dude, it's Friday. It's the end of the day. You've had a day, you got lots of work here. I've had a day. I don't want to talk to you about your cell phone. Like, can we make that happen? Or is this going to be like, do I need to do something here? Or are you going to put that thing away? It's like, now you can see the look on his face is like, oh, this dude's not playing anymore. I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm not playing. Your auto teacher sounds desperate on the phone to get you to get this done. So, like, do you want to get it done or not? It was just cool. I was like, okay, I'm doing my thing. Supportive, caring, but we're not wasting time. Like, you got a
Yep.
lot of work to do, and I'm here to support you. But the friggin' cell phone, I was like, I'm going to toss that thing if you don't put it away. Like, I could see the addiction, like and for the most part, I've not seen a lot of that. Kids have been doing a really good job of not having it out every 5 seconds, from my perspective.
What have you folks implemented in order to kind of satisfy that government mandate now? So what's that look like at your school?
So, administration at our first staff meeting told all the teachers, um, they provided us with a slideshow that we could show the students on the first, second day of school, and basically
Mhm.
said, like, this is how we're operating. Uh, it was left to the discretion of the teacher whether, like, you wanted a bin for kids to just drop it in there when they walked in, or you just tell them, I don't want to see it, so when you walk in here, make sure it's in your backpack or something. I don't want to see it. um, and then teachers delivered that message to the students, and then the students have not been using it. um,
Mm.
I know i know, like, in student success, kids will come in every now and then, they check, but they've been pretty good at, like, when I go to sit down with a kid and say, okay, what do you need help with, they put it away right away. Like, they don't keep playing on it like this other kid was doing yesterday.
Mhm.
um it seems to me that it's a little bit more, it's not as it doesn't seem as strict in student success, only in that the kids come in, they got stuff to do. If they check and then put it away quickly, they don't have it out the whole time. Like, I don't have an issue with that. But for the most part, I'm told there's not been a lot of issues. We've also been told, though, that if a student has it out and you tell them, like, put it away, you're not supposed to have it out. We're not doing anything involving it. I have not permitted you to use it. If they become difficult, then we've been instructed to notify the office,
Mm.
to call and say this kid won't put their phone away, so someone down there is going to have to come and deal with this.
Yep. It's similar to us. We have a step in between those two where, well, yeah. So they've all had the assembly. Kids have all had the sort of like startup school assembly. Here's the expectations. Then there's the double down. Everyone was asked to also present that to all of their classes. So you kind of reinforce it. So the layers for us are there's now a common understanding that the phone is never in play, out, used, even on preferred personal time, um, unless the teacher explicitly tells you to take it out. And they've been seen some instances said, like, don't even ask for permission. Like, don't even engage in that conversation. We're no longer in that space. If the teacher says we're going to do an activity with, so that kind of hasn't changed. That was always kind of our rule, that classroom judgment. Um, if the phone is out, where we have been instructed to give the warning, the reminder, we're in this sort of growth time trying to get used to a new rule. We've also specifically been asked by our admin to not use our phones so that we're modeling it. For me, that's bullshit. I'm constantly capturing classroom data. Like, I do a board note and I right away walk up, take a photo of it, and post it to our Google Classroom under whatever topic we're in, right? So I'm modeling appropriate use. Am I on it texting? Does it? No. The next layer, though, is that if the kid does take it out, so they become a repeat user, we've been instructed to the kid then has to put it in some sort of a drawer, lock up, some sort of a secure space in the classroom, and that's where it goes. That's it. You walk in the class, you put it in there, and you're not really given any quarter to say that there's a way for you to earn it back. You put it there, it's going to stay there. And then, of course, we're keeping the parents in the loop along the way. The final step would be if the kid repeats the behavior of usage, won't put it away, won't put it in the lockup, then we call admin, and admin will come and get them. They'll confiscate the device. The parents will be called. Suspension could happen. So that's ours.
You were very detailed, which I appreciate. I I'm sure I'm missing some things. At the end of the day, admin did say to us, like, and so did our head OECTA rep, the person who tends to talk to us about the union, said, you don't need to go nuclear immediately, right?
Mhm.
Like the kids got the phone out and you call in the office. Like our admin said, if the kid's got the phone out, you tell them put it away, and it becomes an issue. OECTA said that they recommend we don't physically take phones away from anybody. That's
Oh,
their
sorry. Yeah, we don't take it. They were clear on that. We're not taking it. The instruction is for the child to go put it in the drawer, the lockup. Now I'm fortunate. I have a cart in my room where each of the kids puts their C equipment at the end of the day, and they each have their own spot. And I've told the kids flat out, you'll put it because they take their laptops out when they need them for class. I said, you're just going to put it in your labeled spot. I'm going to lock the cart back up at the end of class. I'll unlock the cart. You take your phone, put your SIA in there. So that part is what we've been instructed. We're not handling their phone at all. So if the kid is not going to do that step on their own, that's when we call it in. So far, it's been okay. I haven't found it to be an issue. I did hit them a little bit more nuclear on the front end because I wanted to jar them into presence. And what I mean by that is they weren't even aware that they were pulling it out. Not hostile, but I said, this is what a warning is. Because I also have to shape the moment for the kids. This is what a warning is. A warning is information that you receive just before something else happens. I said, for example, a lighthouse. A lighthouse has a bit of a horn and a bit of a light. That is a warning. Don't come any closer to this the foghorn or the light, otherwise you're going to crash on the rocks. Kids are like, okay. I'm like, so this is the warning. By me giving you the warning, that means you are about to be moved to the next step in the progressive discipline, which is having your phone put in lockup. Okay. So yeah, I have to, that sort of heads up on where they're at. I did a lot of that in the beginning, and it really hasn't, even though it was like the learning stage, I wanted to sort of kind of meta out that the kid was in a warning stage. Like your behavior right now has actually put you in this next stage. I'm bringing it to your attention. You might not even know you're getting close to the rocks, but you are. Oh, oh, well, what are you going to do next? I'm like, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to give you the next warning, which is now you are in the zone of you're on the rocks. Now you got to go put your phone into the lockup. So, and I've had a few kids like, what are you going to do if I don't? I said, to you, nothing, but I'm going to call admin, and then admin's going to come down. Well, what if I don't go with them? Well, then likely your parents will be called. What if I don't go with them? I don't know. I guess police. All you have to do is put your phone in the lockup. I mean, this was a great little short story. I had one kid walk through this great little short story. Love it. Save it for literacy class. Just this is the warning. Make sure your phone's away. A lot of kids are struggling with because we're not even permitting them to use it even in preferred time in classes. It can't be out unless it's permission. So even my kids in my class, they're like, well, I need to listen to music. I'm like, you don't need to, you want to. Um, and the other part of it is you'll just have to set up a playlist on your laptop because we're not taking your laptops away. So set your earbuds to be able to work with your laptop and listen to music there. That would be a little bit difficult for some kids.
um I, that's great. And I'm not in a regular classroom, so I'm
Mhm.
not I'm not privy, but I know that moving forward in student success, if you're in that room, you got stuff to do, or
Mhm.
you're chilling and it's not going to be on your phone. I mean, if I'm the one supporting you, I'm going to tell you to put the phone away. You're not here to use the phone. So, and I guess I'll also take direction from the people working with me in the room.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll see. I know you have to go. There's a couple of comments.
Yeah, let's
Gary was
sure.
saying he always thinks that he's going to be more efficient with his timelines with IEP writing, but he always seems to be more similar to previous years.
Yeah.
I totally get that. Rochelle says it's interesting that they were told at her school the first time phone is out, we notify the office to let them know that the student's coming down to drop off their phone.
Mhm.
Strangely,
I would say that's a lot of work on admin. I'm sorry. It's way, and I don't, Rochelle, I don't know how big your school is, but that does not seem like a reasonable distribution of responsibility. It doesn't the first time. It just doesn't. How can, because you could literally have 100 kids being sent down, depending on the size of your school. Right? When I just That's fascinating to me. I would be interested. Maybe I'll talk to some of my administrative friends and see how's it been working out. Like, are they just getting flooded? Because I know some schools will look at, definitely at your school, Rochelle, but I know even at my school, they're quick stepping some of those kids through those progressive discipline things because they want the kids to have their phone taken away. I know that. I know that there's some educators that operate that way. They're like, you know what? Remember yesterday I gave you that warning? They're like, you just kind of pointed at my phone. Yeah, well, that was the warning. You're now here. You're en route, baby. You're going down. Yeah, yeah, you're en route.
Gary says in their SST room, it hasn't been much of an issue because for several years they've had phone sock lockups that allow students to keep phone but no access. It has similar tech to clothing in stores. Interesting.
Mm,
Yeah, then he said, yeah, had not. But that's good for me. For me right now, it's not a big deal. But like I said, this kid yesterday, he took it out a few times and was, I don't know what he was doing, texting somebody, but I was like, this ends now. And if he had if he had been difficult, then I just would have kept going with, I don't understand what the big deal is.
mhm.
School's going to be over soon. You can use your phone for the rest of the weekend. Right now, we're working on this safety activity. I'm not interested in calling the office, but if someone's just blatantly not following the instructions in the school culture, well,
Mhm.
something needs to be done.
I know of teachers that have gone out and bought a class set of Faraday bags, and that's what they do. Kid walks in, puts their phone into the bag, it sits on the corner of their desk. I don't know. That seems like an overkill of investment. So
Well, but if it brings them the peace of mind that the
I
cell phone's
guess
not going to be an issue, that might work for some people.
I guess the complications, I'm just not prepared, and also the financial, like because the school boards
Yeah,
aren't providing these. So
I would I would like to think that I would say to my classes, I don't want to see it. Like, I don't
mhm,
want to see it. If you have it out and you're distracted by it, that's a problem because everybody in school's been told we're not operating that way anymore.
mhm,
So put it away. Let's not make it an issue. And even preferred time, no, you can check it when you're walking between classes. That's what I see kids do, the zombie walk. The bell
yeah,
rings and it's all zombies just walking like this,
yeah.
you know?
I started a couple grade nines this past week actually because I don't move and I wait with I'm within about a meter and a half. I'm like heads up, and they actually, and I'm always like, if they're crowded, I'm against the wall. But I will say I did startle a couple grade nines this week because it's, again, walking through the hall like that is not reasonable. It's not. Pay attention where you're going. I shouldn't have to move because you can't get out of your phone, right? That's not how things work.
A student walked into me outside when I was on supervision.
Yeah,
A group was coming and I was looking one way and then boom,
yeah,
I look over and it's this little petite girl. I'm like, wow, do you play rugby? Because like you walked into me like you were taking me out. She's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, sir. Are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm good, but you're outside. You're about to cross the street. Like you should really know what's going on
exactly.
around you.
We have a few crossovers where when I come up to them, like I hustle right up to it, and I'm like, "Oot." I check both ways and then I pull out. But I can't. So many times you come up to that T section and someone's just like, and they come right out into it. I'm like, yo, and they're like, oh, wait, they kind of bobble their phone for a second. Like, good thing you got an OtterBox.
Mm.
That could have ended not well.
Okay, well, I think we're good for today, Chris.
Okay, dude.
We're gonna punch out. Thanks, Gary and Rochelle, for joining us and jumping into the conversation. For anybody else who was here with us, thanks for checking us out.
For
Um,
sure.
we appreciate you coming out on a Saturday morning. Feel free to comment and jump into the conversation. This was season 8, episode 3, number 309, and we'll catch you later. Peace.
Peace, man. Take care.
You too.